The fascinating analysis of the world's hardest sport climb. The breakdown of Adam Ondra climbing Silence, which is rated 515D or 9C, shows some of the crucial things he did right, and his yelling sounds ridiculous, but it's actually a way to breathe better. There's a lot of footage of this route, and Eric Horst breaks down the different crux sections and their timing. First, there's a 50-second V15, then there's a 25-second V13, and finally there's a 55-second long V10. Notice none of these difficult sections are longer than 60 seconds. And according to Horst, that's the longest you can be at your near limit without seeing a decrease in power output. So the lesson for you is to figure out how to break your hardest climbs into sections that are under 60 seconds. But let's get into the different crux sections and the details of them. Before any of the cruxes, there is a 65-foot 514A that you climb to get into this hard part. It's worth noting that back in 1985, the hardest thing anyone had climbed was 514A. Stefano Ghisolfi, the Italian climber, said this first section is actually really fun, but the secret is to get through all 65 feet without feeling any kind of tiredness. Now, block 1 is a 12-move V15 that Adam Ondra does in 50 seconds. He leaves the knee bar and launches into the movement through what Stefano calls magical holds, which look pretty fun, but quickly get very difficult. Starting with the left hand that Stefano calls probably the most painful hold in all of the route, you have to invert, place a foot jam, and then a few finger jams before you get little crimps. Tom Randall, in talking about crack climbing and the challenges of inverted climbing, says that at a certain point you've trained enough that you can actually pull with your leg. Instead of Adam Ondra just putting his toe in there and setting it, he's actually pulling himself up with the leg. After this section, Adam Ondra gets a rest with a kind of painful knee bar, and it's interesting to note that earlier on he said he could only hang there for a few seconds without pain in his knee or cramping. But he figured out how to train his leg to get stronger, and he can hang out there for several minutes, which is how he recovers enough for the next crux. Block 2 is a V13 sequence which includes 8 hand moves and 12 foot moves, which he does in a total of 25 seconds. That's incredibly fast, and Eric Horst points out that that's a move every 1.25 seconds, which is roughly 3 to 5 times as fast as your advanced climber would move. There's a left hand undercling, a high left foot into a crack, which is often wet, and then a few bumps of the right hand out to a wide shoulder move. Then there's small crimps under a roof, leading to a dynamic move out right. After this chunk, he gets a rest with a heel hook on, but only for a little over 30 seconds, and then he jumps back in. Block 3 is only V10, but after 125 feet of climbing, it's really astonishing he's able to climb through this 55-second sequence. He then rests pretty solidly on a double toe hook, but he actually moves over to this big hold, getting his feet down on these holds that are pretty far below him, and it's amazing to just see how easily he can recover on what looks like a pretty hard hold. Ondra gets 2 shakeouts with his forearms as well as some calf shakeouts. It looks pretty silly, but I bet it's pretty valuable for his recovery. There's a bonus block 4, which is a V5 boulder problem, and Adam Ondra doesn't take it lightly. He does really get his full rest in before going into the final section and making sure he gets this end. Another thing Adam Ondra does is alternate between breath holds, which gives you the most core tension, and loud exhales, which are his power yells. It turns out forceful exhalation when you're yelling ensures that you breathe in and get enough oxygen into your blood so your muscles can keep firing. Adam Ondra also does a lot of really interesting visualization exercises. They look pretty funny, but it works for him, and he's able to practice almost daily, making sure that he knows the moves and he has the muscle memory ready for when he goes and does the send. The lesson is, maybe you should yell the next time you're at the climbing gym and see if it gets you a lot more force. You probably won't be as strong as Adam Ondra immediately, but give it a go.